It's on Vedanta. Now we have Swami Shivaprakasananda Saraswati, who is basically an engineer who served after his profession of engineering. He served 10 years in the Ramakrishna mission. Later, he took the sannyasa from Arsha Vidya Gurukula from Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Now he is heading Arsha Vidya Gurukula Center in Karnataka, Bangalore. He is well versed in Vedanta and he is a guru in Samskrita also. After his speech, we will be having Dr. Ramachandra Bhatt is going to deliver his lecture on principles of consciousness and its relations to well-being. He is the Vice Chancellor of S. Vyasa Yoga University, Bangalore. May I now request Shri Shivaprakasananda Saraswati Swamiji, sir, please. Before that, there is one information for all the delegates. The timetable is being provided in your kits. The parallel session will start after the lunch session. We will break for lunch after this session. After that, the parallel sessions, 2 parallel sessions will run. One will be on yoga, that will be in the hall above this hall. That's in the 3rd floor, the hall number 1. In yoga presenters, the paper presenters of yoga will be accommodated there. And then opposite to this building, this Shikshaka Sadhana, opposite to that KP TCL hall is there, auditorium. There is the presentation hall 2. We will have 3 sessions parallelly. The main session will run in this auditorium. Hall number 1 will be above this, the hall number 2 opposite to this building. Please refer to the timetable, time schedule given to this. All the delegates, please cooperate. Please, sir.
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Ladies and gentlemen, it's already late and most of you must be hungry. There is a statement that you should not teach Vedanta to somebody with hungry stomach. But definitely, I am not here to teach Vedanta because teaching Vedanta is not a matter of a few minutes. Even to give an introduction, it takes a few hours of systematic teaching from a competent teacher. I have written an article which is available in the Souvenir on the traditional understanding of Vedanta, and those who are interested can go through it. It gives a good introduction in brief. I will not waste your time. I will just speak for a few minutes on certain questions which a layman may have regarding Vedanta. The first question is, what is the relevance of Vedanta in modern times? We have accomplished spectacular advancements in the field of science and technology, also in the field of medicine. Therefore, the human lifestyle has changed. The human life has changed. Therefore, obviously, when we go to introduce Vedanta to somebody, this will be the first question: is it relevant today or is it obsolete? Definitely, it is not obsolete. Because in spite of all the advancement in the science and technology, if you peep into the human mind and see the same emotional problems, misery, sorrow, feeling of incompleteness, feeling of loneliness, etc. are still there. And therefore, everyone seeks for lasting peace and happiness, which the science and technology cannot give us. Also, all the comforts in the modern life cannot give it. What can give ultimate peace and happiness is only self-knowledge. That is what the Shastras reveal. And the means for self-knowledge is Vedanta and only Vedanta. Therefore, it is very much relevant, whatever may be the time, whether now or 100 years back, whether it is Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, or any other Yuga. Now the question is, what is Vedanta? I would like to explain in a few words, even though I may not give a good clarity regarding what is Vedanta. There is something called pramana. Pramana means a means of knowledge. Whatever fact you have to know, you need means of knowledge. If I have to see the color of this paper, I need eyes. It's a means of knowledge, pramana. In our day-to-day life, we employ two means of knowledge. One is direct perception, which is called pratyaksha. Another is anumana, inference. But certain things cannot be known by direct perception and inference. Certain things are not within the scope of direct perception and inference. Such facts can be known by means of another means of knowledge, another pramana, which is in the form of a body of literature, which is in the form of words. And the words, the body of literature is called the Vedas. And these Vedas can be divided into two portions, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Karma Kanda deals with the rituals and values, and Jnana Kanda deals with the self-knowledge. And this portion of Vedas, which is called Jnana Kanda, is otherwise known as Vedanta, because it is the end portion of Vedas. And also it is called Upanishads. Therefore, Vedanta primarily means the Upanishads, which is a part of the Vedas. And these Upanishads reveal the self, the knowledge of the self. It is a very brief introduction. You can, those who are interested can pursue more and try to understand on their own. We conduct classes. And another question I would like to address here is Vedanta a science? Or is Vedanta scientific? Generally we talk, everything is scientific, everything we Indians have is scientific. It is, what about Vedanta? Is it scientific or not? I will say it is neither scientific nor unscientific. Because if you have to say it is scientific, science should be able to prove what Vedanta says, or science should be able to arrive at what Vedanta says. But it is not so, because science deals with the external world. And therefore, the means of knowledge employed in science are direct perception as well as inference. But Vedanta deals with a totally different subject matter. It is your own essential nature, your own self. What is the reality of your own self? Are you just this body? Are you just a mixture of body and mind, or something more than that? Is there a greater truth behind your own self? And it is not addressed in science, and science can neither prove nor disprove it. Therefore, it's a totally different subject matter which is not within the scope of science. The next question is Vedanta a school of thought? When we say school of thought, generally it is built up by an individual. Individual's intellect, intellectual speculations. But Vedanta is not like that. It is not built by an individual. There is no founder for Vedanta. You can't say Vedanta is founded by Shankaracharya or anybody. It is right from the divine. What is the role of mystical experience in Vedanta? This is a very intricate question. Generally, Vedanta is mistaken as you meditate and get some experience, and then you get the knowledge of the self-realization. But if you go deeper into Vedanta, it is very clear that it is not that you get self-knowledge by a mystical experience. The self-knowledge is a result of exposure to the teaching of Vedanta Shastra by a competent teacher. Therefore, it involves teaching. And teaching requires proper methodology of teaching, etc. And what is the role of a guru in Vedanta? There are some people who say you can get the knowledge of the self without guru, but the tradition doesn't accept, because the subject matter is very subtle in nature. Therefore, it requires a proper guru, proper teacher. I think this much is enough for today. Those who are interested can pursue. They can nowadays a lot of resource is available in the internet as well as outside. Those who are interested to understand the Vedanta as the tradition means it, they should make their own effort to understand. With this request, I conclude my talk. Thank you.